Hello and welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic. In today's video, we are going to add the next 20 creature cards to our Momir Vig Cube with a converted mana cost of 3. What's up, MTG baby? That is the MTG Burgeoning community. Here we are again with another installment of our Momir Vig Cube series. If you happened to miss or just want to review what Momir Vig is, in addition to what this cube is all about, you can search in the description below for various links. The first one is MTG Burgeoning's introduction to the Momir Vig variant. The second will be Cube Cobra, where you can see the contents of the cube right now. So, with no more yakking, we're going to get right down to the next 20 creature cards with converted mana cost of 3 going into our Momir Vig Cube. The first creature card for today, Blinding Soul Eater. We have an artifact creature for 1, it's 3 mana, of course, because all of these creatures are going to have a mana value of 3. It's a 1/3 that has Phyrexian mana, which means we can pay 2 life or pay a plains and tap Blinding Soul Eater in order to tap target creature. So here is a nice little versatile creature that even if you don't happen to have any plains out onto the battlefield, again, MTGBC, make sure you diversify those basic land decks. You can still pay 2 life and tap Blinding Soul Eater to tap down a creature that may end up doing more damage to you than the loss of 2 life. Blinding Soul Eater is creature card number 1 of this video. Next up, we have Bone Shredder, a 1/1 Phyrexian minion with flying and echo. And echo, as a reminder, back from the time of the Urza block at the beginning of our upkeep. If this came into play under our control since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay its echo cost. One of the things that has been, no pun intended, echoed throughout this Momir Vig Cube series is not every single creature in the cube is going to be uber helpful. And this could be one, or maybe it is. Let's read the next block of text under the echo reminder text. When Bone Shredder ETBs, destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. In a format worth no instants, with no sorceries and very little removal, conjuring a copy of Bone Shredder to the battlefield and popping off a target non-artifact, non-black creature could be extraordinarily beneficial, even if you so choose to not pay the echo during your next turn. Bone Shredder is creature card number 2. Number 3 is a Commander Classic, now being housed in the Momir Vig Cube. Burnished Heart. 2/2 Elk. We can pay 3, sacrifice it, and search our library for 2 basic lands and put them onto the battlefield tapped. So we can get the Burnished Heart out there and then sacrifice it after perhaps maybe a chump block or a couple of points of damage flung around the table. And we can ramp ahead of our opponents by being able to conjure creatures from the cube at a higher mana curve. Getting 2 extra basic lands onto the battlefield is a lot more valuable than it may seem in a format where you can only conjure 1 creature per turn. Burnished Heart could put you ahead of your opponents and end up winning the game very quickly. Creature number 4 of this subset of creatures is Bygone Bishop. We had a 2/3 flyer that whenever we cast a spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, we get to investigate. And to investigate, we create a clue, which lets us pay 2, sacrifice the clue to draw a card. So this can help keep gas in our hand, because remember, this is Momir Vig. Each time we summon one of those creatures from the cube, we must discard a card from our hand, and one of those cards is going to be a land. So, as a way in which to maybe build up our resources, we continuously choose to just cast creatures with mana values of 3 in order to investigate. Bygone Bishop allows for some versatility if you so happen to conjure it onto the battlefield. Creature number 5, as we hit the 1/4 mark of this video, is Canyon Jerboa, 1/2 mouse with the landfall mechanic. Whenever a land ETB is under our control, creatures we control get +1/+1 until end of turn. This is a way in which to grant temporary power and toughness boosts to our army, which is going to be most beneficial in a format where combat is paramount. All right, next up, we have Captain Lannery Storm, a 2/2 hasty human pirate. Whenever Captain Lannery Storm attacks, we create a treasure, and whenever we sacrifice a treasure, Captain Lannery Storm gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So similar to what we mentioned with Burnished Heart, Captain Lannery Storm provides the opportunity for us to ramp ahead of our opponents through the creation of treasure tokens. Next up, we have creature card number 7, and it is Cave People. It's a 1/4, but when attacking, Cave People gets +1/-2 until end of turn. So if we send Cave People into combat, it's going into combat as a 2/2. If it's just sitting back untapped, it's a 1/4. The more beneficial aspect of this creature, in my opinion, is we can pay 1 and 2 red, again, BC. Make sure you got some mountains in that basic land deck. We can pay 1 and 2 red and tap Cave People to give target creature mountain walk until end of turn. Of course, that means if any of your opponents has a mountain in play, the creature that you imbued with mountain walk cannot be blocked by that player. Again, in a format where combat is paramount, sending in some unblockable combat damage could be enough to tip the game in your favor. All right, creature card number 8. Speaking about creatures that may be able to go into combat and not get blocked, we have Champion of Lamholtz, 1/1 human warrior. Creatures with power less than Champion of Lamholtz power can't block creatures we control. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of Lamholtz. So if we can sit back and play the defensive game for enough turns to buff up Champion of Lamholtz's power, we can send numerous creatures into combat that most likely will enter into combat and not be able to be blocked. We can almost consider Champion Lamholtz a potential win condition card from the 3 CMC slot. And that, folks, is mind-boggling. Creature card number 9, we have Chasm Skulker, a 1/1 squid horror. Whenever we draw a card, we put a +1/+1 counter on Chasm Skulker. When Chasm Skulker dies, we will create X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk. Watch out for those islands, opponents. And we put this onto the battlefield where X is a number of +1/+1 counters on Chasm Skulker. Again, Momir Vig allows us to cast 1 creature per turn. So if there are any creatures that you can summon to your side of the battlefield that has the potential to create additional creatures, that is one that we prioritize every single day of the week and twice on Friday Night Magic. All right, and hitting the halfway point of this video, we are moving on to Cold-Eyed Selkie. We got a 1/1 with another Island Walk. Watch out for those islands, BC. Whenever Cold-Eyed Selkie deals combat damage to a player, we draw that many cards. So as long as one of our opponents has an island in play, we're turning Cold-Eyed Selkie sideways, sending unblockable damage to that opponent and filling our hand with a card. And if we have the benefit of having any temporary or permanent power boosts, well, that's just all the better and putting more cards into our hand. It will be only a matter of time if we get this creature onto the battlefield under our control that we will just start to outvalue all of our opponents. All right, 10 down, 10 to go. Next up, creature number 11, we have Combat Celebrant, 4/1 human warrior. If Combat Celebrant hasn't been exerted this turn, we may exert it as it attacks. And when we do, we untap all other creatures we control. And after this phase, there is an additional combat phase. So based upon the potential for winning through multiple combats on one turn, it's really going to come all down to combat math and how much stronger our creatures are with respect to our opponents. If we feel like we can seriously thin out the board and or eliminate one or more opponents, then it makes a whole lot of sense to exert Combat Celebrant when we send it into combat. That is creature number 11. Next up we have, oh, it's a goodie, an oldie but a goodie. We've got Cosmic Larva. It's a 7/6 trampler. So let's just put that down for a moment. It's a 7/6 trampler for 3 mana. So you know there has to be some kind of horrible drawback. Well, it's red, so yes, there is going to be. At the beginning of our upkeep, we sacrifice Cosmic Larva unless we sacrifice 2 lands. So if you're playing on curve and you put your 3rd land down and you summon Cosmic Larva to the battlefield, at the beginning of your next turn, you've got an awfully tough decision to make. You sacrifice 2 lands or you keep a 7/6 trampler on your side of the battlefield and just see what ends up happening. Again, like I said when we were talking about Bone Shredder, not every single creature in the Momir Vig Cube is going to be uber helpful. Next creature we have is Crusader of Odric. It's a human soldier whose power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures we control. No evasion, no flying, no trample, no landwalk, no protection. Just the propensity to get very big if we have many creatures on our battlefield. All right, next up we have, oh, make sure you're packing the black mana, MTG The Crypt Rats are going into the Momir Vig Cube. It's a 1/1 rat that we can pay X, but the X can only be black mana. And when we do, it deals X damage to each creature and each player. So with enough swamps on the battlefield under our control, we can activate Crypt Rats and get what could probably be one of the best and only board wipes included in this Momir Vig Cube. This pestilence-like effect, again, can only be triggered by black mana, so make sure you're packing those swamps in the land deck, MTG. All right, creature card number 15 as we hit the 3/4 mark of this video, and that's going to be Daring Thief. It's a 2/3 human rogue with the inspired mechanic. So whenever Daring Thief becomes untapped, we may exchange control of target non-land permanent we control and target permanent an opponent controls that shares a card type with it. Now a 2/3 for 3, there is the potential to be able to swing with this and not have it die. So it's not an automatic disclusion that getting this creature onto the battlefield under our control means that we may never be able to activate its inspired mechanic. And if we do, then we can definitely swap out our weakest creature for the most powerful creature that any one of our opponents control. All right, creature card number 16, Dark Imposter, a vampire assassin for 2/2. We can pay 4 and 2 black mana to exile target creature and put a +1/+1 counter on Dark Imposter. Dark Imposter has all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with it. So we want to make sure that we are packing some black mana and that we can keep Dark Imposter alive long enough, and our life, of course, because we're only starting with 24 life. But if we can get to the point in the game where we can start just exiling creatures from the battlefield and making Dark Imposter grow in power and toughness and ability without any kind of interaction from an opponent, in a format where, let's be honest, there's going to be very little interaction, Dark Imposter could get out of control and be considered a win condition from the 3 CMC spot. All right, next up we have the Death Gorge Scavenger. It's a 3/2 dinosaur. Whenever it ETBs or attacks, we may exile a card from a graveyard. That will be a land card every single time. Remember, every creature summoned from the cube is a copy of that creature, so it's a token copy. There are no creature cards in the graveyards. The only cards we'll see will be lands. So for the purposes of this creature, it should read, whenever Death Gorge Scavenger ETBs or attacks, we exile a land from the graveyard. And if we do, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Next creature, as we're nearing 20, this is creature number 18, and we have Demon Disciple, a 3/1. When it ETBs, each player sacrifices a creature. It also says or a planeswalker, but there are no planeswalkers in Momir Vig. So Demon's Disciple, for the purposes of this cube, says when it ETBs, each player sacrifices a creature. Some much needed and much valuable removal in a format that will be lacking a great deal of it. Creature number 19, going back to the time of Kamigawa, we have Descendants of Kiyomaru. It's a 2/3 human soldier. As long as we have more cards in hand than each opponent, Descendant of Kiyomaru gets +1/+2 and has, whenever this creature deals combat damage, we gain 3 life. So this offers the opportunity to be a little shenanigan-y with the cards in our hands, particularly as it pertains to how many cards are in our opponent's hands. A 3/4 that gains us 3 life whenever it deals combat damage. Keep in mind it says combat damage. It doesn't have to deal damage to our opponent, and that will gain us 3 life. That may be enough to consider keeping Descendant of Kiyomaru online as much as possible. And our last creature of the day, creature number 20, we have Dreadshade. It's a 3/3 that has Swamp Breathing. For every black mana you pay, Dreadshade gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So MTGBC, as we've echoed throughout this video, make sure you're packing the swamps in that basic land deck. And that's going to do it for this video. Let me know your thoughts of this inclusion in the cube in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.